Admiral Tae-ho Kim stood on the bridge of Earth's largest space station, looking out at the stars. For 30 years, humans had been sending messages into space. They wanted to meet other intelligent life. They wanted to join the galaxy. But no one ever answered back. "Sir, we're getting another transmission from the Galactic Council," said Communications Officer Min-ho. "It's the same as always. They're talking to each other, but they won't talk to us." Tae-ho nodded sadly. The council was real. 47 different alien species worked together across this part of the galaxy. Humans could hear their radio signals. They could decode some of their language. But whenever Earth tried to contact them, the council ignored them completely. "What are they saying this time?" Tae-ho asked. "They're discussing weapon technology again. Something about plasma cannons and energy shields. They seem very proud of their advanced weapons." Tae-ho thought about Earth's weapons. Humans still used guns that fired bullets. They had missiles and bombs. Their spaceships had railguns that shot metal rods very fast. The aliens probably thought humans were primitive and stupid. Dr. Yoon-ji Park was working late in her laboratory. She was Earth's best weapons engineer. For 5 years, she had been building something special. It was a railgun big enough to put on a spaceship. But this wasn't just any railgun. This one could fire tungsten rods at 15% the speed of light. "The magnetic coils are finally working perfectly," she told her assistant. "The power requirements are huge, but we can manage it with our new fusion reactors." Her assistant looked worried. "Dr. Park, why are we building such powerful weapons? We don't have any enemies." Dr. Park stopped working and looked up. "That's not true. We've been trying to contact the Galactic Council for 30 years. They know we exist, but they won't talk to us. That means they think we're not worth their time. And if they think we're worthless, they might decide we're in their way." She pointed to her computer screen, which showed intercepted alien communications. "Look at this. Last month, they discussed primitive kinetic weapon users in the Sol system. That's us. They're talking about us like we're cavemen with sticks." The assistant read the translation. The aliens used words like barbaric and outdated when they talked about human weapons. They laughed at the idea of shooting metal objects instead of using energy beams. "But what if our primitive weapons are actually better?" Dr. Park asked. "What if they're so focused on being advanced that they forgot about the basics?" Captain Hyunwoo Lee was training his crew on the UES Thunderbolt. It was the first human warship equipped with Dr. Park's new railgun. The ship looked different from other human vessels. It had a long, thick barrel running along its spine. Inside that barrel were magnetic coils that could accelerate a tungsten rod to incredible speeds. "Listen carefully," Lee told his weapons officer. "This railgun is not like anything we've used before. When we fire it, the tungsten rod will travel so fast that it carries the energy of a nuclear bomb, but it's just a piece of metal. No explosives, no energy signature that enemy sensors can easily detect." The weapons officer, Lieutenant Jae-sung Park, raised his hand. "Sir, what happens when it hits something?" "Physics happens," Lee replied with a grim smile. "When something moving at 15% light speed hits a target, it doesn't matter how thick the armor is. The kinetic energy turns everything into plasma." Lee had read the reports about alien technology. Their ships used energy shields that could deflect plasma beams and energy weapons. But those shields were designed for energy, not for solid objects moving at relativistic speeds. "The aliens think we're primitive," Lee continued. "They use advanced energy weapons and think that makes them superior. But they've forgotten something important. In space, there's no air resistance. A simple piece of metal can travel forever once you get it moving fast enough." Meanwhile, far from Earth, a Galactic Council scout ship was watching the Sol system. Scout Commander Veltar was filing his monthly report about human activities. "The humans continued to develop their kinetic projectile weapons," he reported to his superiors. "They have installed larger versions on their spacecraft. However, these remain insignificant threats. Projectile weapons are ineffective against modern shielding technology." Veltar watched through his ship's sensors as the UES Thunderbolt conducted weapons tests. He saw the ship fire its railgun at an asteroid. The tungsten rod hit the space rock and completely destroyed it, turning it into dust and debris. "Impressive for primitive technology," Veltar muttered. But he didn't understand what he was really seeing. His sensors couldn't measure the true speed of the projectile. His species had abandoned kinetic weapons thousands of years ago. They had no modern data about what such weapons could do when perfected. The humans appear to be preparing for some kind of military action. Veltar continued his report. However, their technology remains far below Council standards. Any single Council vessel could easily defeat their entire fleet. Back on Earth, Admiral Tejo received intelligence reports about the Council's activities. Human spies and listening posts had detected something troubling. Several Council species were discussing the Sol system with increasing interest. "They're not just ignoring us anymore," Intelligence Officer Subin told the Admiral. "They're talking about our solar system like it's real estate they want to buy." Tejo read the translated communications. The aliens talked about Earth's sun as prime, stellar real estate, and the planets as suitable for colonization by advanced species. They mentioned humans only as an obstacle to be removed. "How many ships does Dr. Park have ready?" Tejo asked. 6 vessels now have the new railguns installed. We're working on 12 more, but it will take time." Tejo looked back out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 47 alien species thought humans were just primitive creatures who didn't deserve to exist. They had ignored every attempt at peaceful contact. Now they were talking about taking Earth's home system for themselves. "Tell Dr. Park to work faster," Tejo ordered. "And tell Captain Lee to prepare his ship for extended patrol duty. I have a feeling we're going to need those railguns sooner than we thought." Dr. Park received the Admiral's message and returned to her laboratory. She looked at her railgun prototype and smiled grimly. The aliens thought humans were primitive. They would learn how wrong they were. Sometimes the oldest solutions were the best solutions. Sometimes a simple piece of metal moving very fast was all you needed to change the galaxy. High Counselor Zethmar sat in the Great Chamber of the Galactic Council. Representatives from 47 species filled the massive hall. Today they were discussing a problem that had been growing for months. The humans of Sol system were becoming too visible. "The primitive species has achieved faster than light travel," reported the Alteran intelligence minister. "Our scouts have detected their ships moving between planets in their system. They are no longer confined to their home world." Zethmar touched his communication device. Holographic displays showed the Sol system in detail. Earth was a beautiful blue world orbiting a perfect yellow star. The system had valuable planets, asteroid belts full of metals, and ideal positioning for trade routes. "This is unacceptable," declared Representative Colmar from the hegemony. "That system has been marked for development by advanced civilizations. These humans are squatters who must be removed." The Council had been watching Sol system for decades. They had always planned to colonize it eventually, but they expected humans to stay on their planet like good primitives. The fact that humans had developed space travel was inconvenient. "What do we know about their military capabilities?" Zethmar asked. Scout Commander Veltar stepped forward. "Honorable Counselor, the humans use kinetic projectile weapons exclusively. Their largest ships carry simple railguns that fire metal rods. These weapons pose no threat to Council vessels with modern shielding." Several Council members laughed. Kinetic weapons were what their ancestors had used thousands of years ago. It was like fighting spears with plasma cannons. "Do they have any energy-based weapons?" asked the representative from the Centauri Collective. "None detected," Veltar replied. "They still use chemical rockets for propulsion in many cases. Their technology level is at least 500 years behind Council standards." Zethmar made his decision. "The humans will be relocated to preserve Sol system for advanced species. They can be moved to the Outer Rim where they won't interfere with civilization." "And if they resist relocation?" asked someone from the back of the chamber. "Then they will be pacified," Zethmar said coldly. "Prepare the first pacification armada. 200 ships should be more than enough to handle primitive projectile weapons." On Earth, General Subin Choi was having the worst day of her military career. Intelligence reports covered her desk. Every single one brought bad news. The Galactic Council wasn't just ignoring humanity anymore. They were planning an invasion. "Ma'am, we've intercepted another Council transmission," said her aide, Major Kyung-ho. "They're calling it a relocation operation. They want to move all humans to what they call the Outer Rim." General Choi knew what the Outer Rim was. Intelligence reports described it as a region of dead stars and empty space far from the galactic center. It was where the Council dumped species they didn't want to deal with. "How long until their fleet arrives?" she asked. "Our deep space sensors detect massive fleet movements. At least 12 different species are contributing ships. We estimate they'll reach Sol system in 3 weeks." 3 weeks. General Choi looked at her deployment charts. Earth had 42 warships spread across the solar system. Most still carried conventional weapons. Only 6 had Dr. Park's new railguns installed. Contact Admiral Tejo. Tell him to implement Defense Protocol 7 immediately and get Dr. Park on the line. We need those railguns operational now. Dr. Park was already working 18-hour days in her laboratory. When General Choi's call came through, she was testing the power systems for her latest railgun design. General, I can have 12 more ships equipped within 2 weeks, Dr. Park reported. But that's pushing our manufacturing capacity to the limit. What about ammunition? General Choi asked. Tungsten rods are easy to make. The real challenge is the power systems. Each railgun needs a dedicated fusion reactor to generate enough electricity for maximum velocity shots. Dr. Park explained the technical details. Her railguns could fire tungsten rods at various speeds. Slower shots used less power but did less damage. Maximum velocity shots required enormous amounts of energy, but could destroy almost anything. How many maximum velocity shots can each ship fire? General Choi wanted to know. With current power systems, about 6 shots per hour at full power. But General, 6 shots might be all we need. These projectiles carry more kinetic energy than our largest nuclear missiles. Captain Hyun-Woo Lee received new orders while patrolling the outer solar system. The UES Thunderbolt was to take position near Jupiter and watch for incoming council ships. His crew was nervous but ready. Sir, our sensors are detecting something big coming this way, reported Lieutenant Jae-Sung Park from the weapons station. Multiple faster-than-light signatures approaching from Galactic Center. Lee looked at the sensor readings. Whatever was coming had more ships than Earth's entire space fleet. But he wasn't afraid. His ship carried humanity's newest weapon, and he believed in Dr. Park's work. All hands, this is the captain, Lee announced over the ship's communication system. The Galactic Council is sending a fleet to force us from our home. They think we're primitive. They think our weapons are toys. Today we're going to teach them that sometimes the old ways are the best ways. His crew cheered. They had trained for months with the railgun system. They knew what tungsten rods could do when fired at 15% the speed of light. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Commander Young-Ho Seo was preparing his ship, the UES Lightning Strike, for its first combat mission. His vessel was one of the newly equipped railgun destroyers. It was smaller than Captain Lee's cruiser but carried the same devastating weapon. The Council fleet is massive, Seo told his weapons officer, but size isn't everything. Our railguns can hit targets from much farther away than their energy weapons can reach us. The weapons officer nodded. Sir, what if their shields can stop our projectiles? Seo smiled. Their shields are designed to stop energy beams and plasma bolts. But our tungsten rods aren't energy. They're solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. When something that fast hits something that slow, physics doesn't care about advanced technology. Communications officer Mi Young-han was working aboard Earth's flagship, the UES Defiant. She was monitoring all Council transmissions, hoping to learn about their battle plans. Admiral, the Council fleet commander is someone called Fleet Admiral Kethnos, she reported to Admiral Tejo. He's from the Alteran Empire. His flagship is a dreadnought-class vessel called the Dominator. Admiral Tejo studied the intelligence reports. Fleet Admiral Kethnos had never lost a battle. His record showed victories against 17 different species over the past 20 years. He was considered one of the Council's best military leaders. What's his tactical style? Tejo asked. He prefers overwhelming force and close-range energy weapons. His fleets typically advance in tight formation to maximize their defensive shields, then close to point-blank range for plasma bombardment. Tejo nodded. That tactical approach would work perfectly against other energy weapon users. Tight formations allowed ships to overlap their shields for maximum protection. Close range made energy weapons more accurate and powerful. But tight formations also made perfect targets for railgun fire, and close range meant the Council ships would have to fly straight toward humanity's weapons for several minutes before they could fire back effectively. Signal all ships, Admiral Tejo commanded. Implement Formation Delta. Maximum spacing between vessels. We'll let them come to us. 2 weeks later, Earth sensors detected the Council fleet entering the outer solar system. 200 alien warships moved in perfect formation toward the inner planets. They broadcasted demands for immediate human surrender on all frequencies. Admiral Tejo stood on his bridge, looking at the massive enemy fleet approaching his home. Behind him, only 18 human ships waited in defensive positions. The odds were more than 10 to 1 against them, but every human ship now carried Dr. Park's railguns. and Fleet Admiral Kethnos was flying straight toward them in the same tight formation that had won him 17 previous victories. "All ships, this is Admiral Tejo," he announced on the fleet communication channel. "Today we fight for our home. Today we show the galaxy that Earth will not be moved. Charge your railguns and prepare to fire." Fleet Admiral Kethnos stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominator. Through the viewing ports he could see the beautiful Sol system spread out before him. 200 Council warships moved in perfect formation behind him. This would be the easiest conquest of his career. "Sir, we're detecting 18 human vessels in defensive positions around the fourth planet," reported his tactical officer. "They appear to be waiting for us," Kethnos laughed. 18 ships against 200. The humans were either very brave or very stupid, probably both. "Open a communication channel to all human vessels," he ordered. "Let's give them one chance to surrender before we demonstrate the power of advanced civilization." The communication systems activated, and Kethnos spoke with the authority of someone who had conquered 17 worlds. "Primitive humans of Sol System, this is Fleet Admiral Kethnos of the Galactic Council. You will immediately evacuate your ships and prepare for relocation to the Outer Rim. Your system is now property of advanced species. Resistance will result in your complete destruction." On the bridge of the UES Defiant, Admiral Tejo listened to the aliens' demands. Communications Officer Mi Young-han looked at him hopefully, waiting for orders to reply. "Open a channel," Tejo said calmly. "Fleet Admiral Kethnos, this is Admiral Tejo Kim of Earth Defense Forces. We do not recognize your authority over our home system. We offer peaceful coexistence and technology sharing. Leave now and there will be no bloodshed." Kethnos received the human response and laughed even harder. "Technology sharing? What could primitives possibly offer to advanced civilizations? Human Admiral, you clearly do not understand your situation. Your primitive kinetic weapons cannot penetrate modern energy shields. Your 18 ships cannot defeat 200 advanced warships. Surrender now or be destroyed." Admiral Tejo looked around his bridge. His crew was ready. Across the fleet, 18 human ships had their railguns charged and targeted. Captain Lee's Thunderbolt was in position near Jupiter. Commander Co's lightning strike was hidden behind one of Jupiter's moons. "Fleet Admiral Kethnos," Tejo replied, "you clearly do not understand your situation. This is your final warning. Leave our system now." Kethnos cut the communication channel. He had given the humans their chance. Now they would learn why the Galactic Council ruled this part of the galaxy. "All ships advance to attack formation. Raise shields to maximum power. We'll close to optimal plasma range and destroy them quickly." The Council fleet moved forward like a massive wall of metal and energy. Their ships were beautiful works of art, covered in smooth curves and glowing energy fields. Advanced shields shimmered around each vessel like soap bubbles made of light. Captain Lee watched the enemy fleet approach on his tactical display. The Council ships were flying in the same tight formation that had won Fleet Admiral Kethnos 17 victories. But today that formation would be their weakness. "Weapons, do you have a target lock on the lead dreadnought?" Lee asked. "Yes, sir," replied Lieutenant Jae-Sung Park. "Range is optimal for maximum velocity shot. Tungsten rod loaded and ready." "All human ships, this is Admiral Tejo," came the voice over the fleet communication channel. "You are authorized to engage enemy vessels. Show them what human engineering can do." Captain Lee took a deep breath. Everything depended on the next few seconds. If Dr. Park was right, human railguns would cut through alien shields like they didn't exist. If she was wrong, Earth would fall. "Fire," Lee ordered. The UES Thunderbolt's railgun fired with a flash of electromagnetic energy. The tungsten rod accelerated down the barrel, reaching 15% of light speed in less than a second. It was invisible to the naked eye, just a piece of metal smaller than a telephone pole moving faster than anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. 3 seconds later, the tungsten rod hit Fleet Admiral Kethnos' flagship. The Dominator was the most advanced warship in the Council fleet. Its shields could stop plasma cannons, energy beams, and nuclear missiles. But the shields were designed to deflect energy, not solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The tungsten rod passed through the energy shields like they weren't there. It hit the ship's armored hull and kept going. The kinetic energy was so enormous that the rod and the ship's armor both turned into plasma on contact. The explosion ripped through the Dominator from bow to stern, tearing the massive dreadnought apart in seconds. Fleet Admiral Kethnos died without understanding what had happened. One moment he was commanding an invincible fleet. The next moment his ship was a cloud of expanding debris. Chaos erupted in the Council fleet. 17 more tungsten rods struck their targets in the following seconds. Commander Seo's lightning strike destroyed another dreadnought with a single shot. The UES Defiant took out a battle cruiser. Across the human fleet, railguns fired again and again. "What's happening?" screamed the tactical officer on the Council ship Devastator. "Our shields aren't stopping anything." "Impossible," shouted Captain Morketh from his command chair. "Kinetic weapons cannot penetrate modern shielding." But Captain Morketh was wrong. His understanding of physics was based on slow-moving projectiles from thousands of years ago. The Council had forgotten that kinetic energy increased with the square of velocity. When something moved fast enough, no shield in the galaxy could stop it. Another tungsten rod struck the Devastator. The ship exploded like a giant firecracker, sending pieces flying in all directions. Captain Morketh joined Fleet Admiral Kethnos in learning that advanced technology meant nothing against basic physics. The Council fleet tried to return fire, but their plasma cannons couldn't reach the human ships. Railguns could hit targets from much farther away than energy weapons could be effective. The humans stayed at maximum range and picked off Council ships one by one. "All ships retreat to plasma cannon range," ordered Captain Velnos, the senior surviving Council officer. "Close formation! Overlap shields for maximum protection." But close formation just made better targets for the railguns. The human ships fired as fast as their weapons could recharge. Every shot was a guaranteed kill. Energy shields designed to stop plasma beams were useless against tungsten rods moving at 15% of light speed. Lieutenant Commander Young Ho. Seo watched his tactical display as enemy ships exploded around his tungsten rod impacts. "Weapons. Target that cruiser formation on the left. Fire when ready." "Firing now, sir." The Lightning Strike's railgun sent another tungsten rod into the Council fleet. 3 alien cruisers died when the rod passed through all of them in a straight line. The physics were simple and terrible. Nothing could survive a direct hit from something moving that fast. Communications Officer Mi Young-han monitored the Council fleet's radio chatter. What she heard made her smile. The alien commanders were panicking. They had no idea how to fight an enemy whose weapons ignored their defenses. "Admiral, the enemy fleet is breaking formation," she reported. "They're trying to scatter, but our ships are tracking them individually." Admiral Tejo nodded. "Continue firing. Don't let any of them escape to warn the Council about our true capabilities." But some Council ships were already running. Their faster-than-light drives activated as they fled toward the edge of the solar system. Captain Velnos was among the survivors. His ship's hull damaged but engines still working. "This is impossible," he transmitted to the fleeing Council vessels. "The humans have weapons that make our shields useless. We must warn the Council immediately." Of the 200 ships in the first pacification armada, only 23 escaped. The rest floated in space as debris clouds, their crews dead and their advanced technology destroyed by simple pieces of metal moving very fast. Captain Lee looked at his tactical display. The battle was over. The mighty Galactic Council fleet had been destroyed by 18 human ships using what the aliens called primitive weapons. Dr. Park had been right. Sometimes the oldest solutions were the best solutions. "All human ships, this is Admiral Tejo," came the announcement over the fleet channel. "Excellent work. Return to base for resupply and repairs. I have a feeling this is just the beginning." Lieutenant Jae-Sung Park looked at his captain. "Sir, what happens now?" "The Council will send more ships," Captain Lee smiled grimly. "Then we'll destroy more ships. Today we proved that human engineering is better than alien arrogance. The galaxy is about to learn that Earth will not be moved." In the debris field where the Dominator had died, pieces of the most advanced warship in the Council fleet drifted silently through space. Fleet Admiral Kethnos had conquered 17 worlds with overwhelming force and superior technology, but he had never faced an enemy who understood that sometimes simple solutions were the most effective solutions. The age of Galactic Council dominance was ending. The age of human railguns had begun. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was the largest gathering in the organization's history. Representatives from all 47 member species filled the Great Chamber. But today, fear filled the air instead of the usual arrogance. High Counselor Zethmar stared at the holographic recordings from the battle in Sol system. The images showed Council dreadnoughts exploding like toys. Advanced energy shields failed completely against simple metal rods. 200 ships reduced to debris in less than an hour. This is impossible, declared Representative Colmar. Kinetic weapons cannot defeat modern technology. These recordings must be fake. Captain Velnos, one of the few survivors from the first pacification armada, stepped forward. His uniform was torn and his face was pale. Honorable representatives, I wish these recordings were fake. But I watched the Dominator explode with my own eyes. I saw 17 dreadnoughts destroyed by single projectile hits. Explain to us how this happened, Zethmar demanded. Captain Velnos activated a tactical display. The human weapons fire solid tungsten rods at approximately 15% of light speed. At that velocity, the kinetic energy is enormous. Our shields are designed to deflect energy beams, not solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. Silence filled the chamber. Every species in the Council had abandoned kinetic weapons thousands of years ago. They had all believed that energy weapons were superior. Now they learned that their ancestors might have been smarter than they thought. What is the current status of human forces? Asked Councillor Vextai from the Centauri Collective. Unknown, Captain Velnos replied. Our intelligence about human military capacity was completely wrong. We assumed they had primitive technology because they used kinetic weapons. We never considered that they might have perfected kinetic weapons beyond anything we imagined. Representative Morcath from the hegemony stood up angrily. We must assemble a larger fleet immediately. Send 1,000 ships. Send 10,000 ships. These primitives cannot be allowed to humiliate the Council. But Councillor Vextai shook his head. What good will more ships do if our shields cannot stop their weapons? We would just be sending more crews to die. The debate continued for hours. Some council members demanded immediate military action. Others argued for diplomatic contact. A few suggested that the council should surrender and accept human terms. While the council argued, a small human fleet was approaching their capital system. Ambassador Sora Kim sat in her cabin aboard the UES Diplomat, reviewing her notes for the most important negotiations in human history. Behind her ship, 5 human destroyers provided escort. Each destroyer carried the railgun technology that had destroyed the Council fleet. Captain Dong-Hyun Yoon commanded the escort destroyer UES Vengeance. His ship was one of the newest railgun vessels, built specifically for power projection missions. Unlike the earlier human warships, the Vengeance was designed to look intimidating. Its railgun barrel was visible from the outside, a clear message to anyone who saw it. Captain, we're approaching the Council capital system, reported his navigation officer. Long-range sensors detect over 300 ships around the main planet. Captain Yoon smiled. 300 ships sounded like a lot. But the human fleet had already proven that numbers meant nothing if your shields couldn't stop railgun fire. Signal the ambassador that we're ready to proceed, and make sure our railgun is charged and visible on their sensors. I want the Council to know exactly what we're carrying. Ambassador Kim received the signal and prepared for the most dangerous diplomatic mission in human history. She was flying into the heart of Council space with only 5 ships for protection, but those 5 ships carried weapons that had already destroyed an entire Council armada. The human fleet arrived at the Council capital during the middle of another emergency session. Councillor Vextai was speaking about the need for diplomatic solutions when alarms began sounding throughout the building. Unknown vessels approaching the capital, announced a security officer. 5 ships unknown configuration broadcasting diplomatic identification codes. High Councillor Zethmar looked at the sensor readings with disbelief. They came here? The humans actually came to our capital? Sir, energy weapon scans show no plasma cannons or beam weapons, the security officer continued. But we're detecting massive electromagnetic signatures consistent with kinetic acceleration systems. Every representative in the chamber understood what that meant. The humans had brought their railguns to the Council capital. They were showing the galaxy's most powerful government exactly what had destroyed the first pacification armada. Open a communication channel, Zethmar ordered. His voice was calm, but his hands were shaking. Ambassador Kim's face appeared on the chamber's main display. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a diplomatic smile. But behind her, through the viewports of her ship, Council representatives could see the long barrel of a railgun pointed at their planet. Honorable members of the Galactic Council, Ambassador Kim began. I am Ambassador Sora Kim, representing the people of Earth. I come seeking peaceful dialogue and mutual understanding. You come with weapons pointed at our capital. Representative Colmar accused. Ambassador Kim's smile never changed. Our ships carry the same defensive systems that protected Earth from your recent invasion. We hope we won't need to use them. The word invasion hung in the air like a threat. The Council had always called their military actions pacification operations or relocations, but Ambassador Kim was calling it what it really was. What do the humans want? Zethmar asked. Recognition as a sovereign species with full rights to our home system, Ambassador Kim replied. An end to all attempts to relocate or pacify human populations, and mutual respect between our civilizations. And if we refuse? Asked Representative Morcath. Ambassador Kim gestured toward the viewport behind her. Then you will learn what the first pacification Armada learned. Our weapons do not distinguish between aggressive fleets and capital planets. The threat was clear. If the Council tried to force humans from their home, Earth was prepared to use railgun technology against Council worlds. The same tungsten rods that had destroyed dreadnoughts could easily destroy cities. Councillor Vextai stood up. The Centauri Collective formally recognizes human sovereignty over Sol System. We request immediate negotiations for peaceful coexistence. Other moderate council members quickly followed. They had seen what human weapons could do. They wanted to be on the winning side of this conflict, but Representative Morcath and his allies were not ready to surrender. The hegemony will never bow to primitive threats. We demand that these humans be destroyed immediately. Ambassador Kim listened to the debate with professional calm. But Captain Yoon was getting tired of insults from species whose fleets his railguns had already destroyed. Ambassador, he said over the private communication channel, would you like me to demonstrate our weapons capabilities for the Council? There's an abandoned moon in the system that would make an excellent target. Ambassador Kim considered the suggestion. Sometimes diplomacy needed a show of force to be effective. Proceed with the demonstration, Captain. But choose your target carefully. Captain Yoon targeted a small moon on the edge of the system. It was uninhabited and had no strategic value. Perfect for showing the Council what railgun technology could do. Councilors, please observe your sensor displays, Ambassador Kim announced. Captain Yoon will now demonstrate the weapon system that defeated your fleet. The UES Vengeance fired a single tungsten rod at the target moon. The projectile traveled across the solar system in minutes, moving at 15% of light speed. When it hit the moon, the kinetic energy was so enormous that the entire satellite cracked in half. The Council chamber fell completely silent. Every representative stared at their sensor readings in shock. The humans had just split a moon with a single shot. If they could do that to a celestial body, they could certainly do it to planets and space stations. As you can see, Ambassador Kim continued calmly, human defensive technology is quite effective. We prefer to use it for peaceful purposes, but we will defend ourselves if necessary. Representative Morcath sat down heavily. His species' military doctrine was based on energy shields that could not stop railgun fire. If the humans decided to attack hegemony worlds, there was nothing his people could do to stop them. The hegemony requests time to consider the human proposal, he said quietly. High Counselor Zethmar looked around the chamber. The most powerful military alliance in the galaxy had just been intimidated by 5 human ships. The age of Council dominance was ending. The Galactic Council formally recognizes human sovereignty over Sol System, he announced. We welcome Earth as a new member of the galactic community. Ambassador Kim smiled. Thank you, High Counselor. We look forward to peaceful cooperation between our species. But both sides knew this was just the beginning. The Council had other fleets and other weapons. Some member species would not accept human equality, and Earth had only 18 railgun-equipped ships to defend an entire solar system. Captain Yoon watched the Council capital on his sensors. Today had been a diplomatic victory, but he knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were no longer primitives to be relo. 6 months after the destruction of the first pacification armada, the galaxy had changed completely. Admiral In-Ho Baek stood on the bridge of his flagship, the UES Thunder, watching his fleet patrol what used to be Council territory. 50 human warships now carried railgun technology across 12 star systems. The official recognition by the Galactic Council had lasted exactly 3 weeks. Then the real war began. Sir, long-range sensors are detecting another attack fleet, reported Navigation Officer Hye Jin. 24 ships from the hegemony approaching the Kepler colony. Admiral Bayek sighed. This was the 15th attack in 6 months. Every time the Council officially made peace, individual member species launched their own raids against human settlements. They could not accept that primitive humans had become a galactic power. Signal the Thunder Squadron to intercept, Admiral Beck ordered. Captain Wonho, take your destroyers and deal with this problem. Captain Wonho's voice came through the communication system. Understood, Admiral. Thunder Squadron moving to engage. Admiral Bayek watched the tactical display as 12 human destroyers moved toward the enemy fleet. The hegemony ships were the same design that had been destroyed at Earth 6 months ago. They had learned nothing from their defeats. Sir, the enemy fleet is demanding our withdrawal from Kepler colony, reported Communications Officer Jiwoo. They claim humans have no right to colonize outside Sol system. Send them our standard response, Admiral Bayek replied. The standard response was simple. Humans would defend their colonies with the same weapons that had destroyed the first pacification armada. Any species that attacked human settlements would face railgun retaliation. 20 minutes later, Captain Wonho reported mission success. All enemy vessels destroyed, Admiral. No human casualties. The hegemony has lost another fleet. Admiral Beck marked another victory on his records. The human fleet was now undefeated in 43 battles against various Council species. Railgun technology had made Earth the most feared military power in the galaxy. But military power alone was not enough. Earth needed allies and trading partners. That was why Dr. Hyojin Lee was working in her laboratory on a project that would change galactic politics forever. The shield integration is finally working, Dr. Lee told her assistant. We can now combine human railgun technology with Centauri energy shields. The Centauri Collective had been the first species to ally with humans after the battle at Earth. Counselor Vextai had convinced his people that joining the humans was better than fighting them. Now Centauri engineers were working alongside human scientists. What about the other allied species? Her assistant asked. The Altarans are sharing their sensor technology. The Keepers are providing better power systems. Everyone wants access to our railgun designs in exchange for their own specialties. Dr. Lee looked at her latest creation. It was a railgun that combined human kinetic technology with alien improvements. The weapon was smaller, more efficient, and more powerful than anything Earth had built alone. We're not just winning the war, she said with satisfaction. We're building the foundation for a new kind of galactic civilization. President Jin-Woo Park was meeting with representatives from the Sol Defense Pact in his office on Earth. The pact now included 12 species who had allied with humanity against the old Council powers. Together, they controlled 30 star systems and were growing stronger every day. The hegemony has requested a ceasefire, reported Foreign Minister So Young. They're offering to recognize human territory in exchange for an end to raids on their shipping. President Park considered the offer. The hegemony had been one of the most aggressive Council species. They had launched 8 separate attacks on human colonies. Each attack had been defeated, and their fleets were now reduced to almost nothing. What about the Altaran Empire? President Park asked. They're requesting a full alliance treaty. Emperor Kolvan wants to join the Sol Defense Pact officially. This was a major development. The Altaran Empire was one of the largest Council members. If they joined the Human Alliance, the balance of galactic power would shift permanently. And the Galactic Council itself? High Counselor Zethmar has resigned, So Young replied. The Council is splitting apart. Some species want to negotiate with us. Others want to keep fighting. A few are talking about leaving the galaxy entirely. President Park smiled. The old Council had ruled through fear and superior technology. But when humans proved that advanced technology could be defeated, the entire system fell apart. Schedule a meeting with Emperor Kolvan. President Park decided. If the Altarans want to join our alliance, we'll welcome them. The galaxy needs a new organization based on cooperation instead of domination. Captain Dong Hyun Yoon was leading a patrol through former Council space when his sensors detected something unusual. A massive alien fleet was approaching from the galactic rim, but these ships weren't attacking. They were broadcasting surrender signals. Sir, it's the Outer Rim Federation, reported his tactical officer. They're requesting permission to join human space. The Outer Rim Federation was where the Council had sent species they considered primitive or useless. It was supposed to be a place of exile and punishment. But now those exiled species wanted to join the human alliance. "Open a communication channel," Captain Yoon ordered. The alien commander appeared on his screen. "Human Captain, I am Fleet Commander Tokmar of the Outer Rim Federation. We request permission to settle in human-protected space. We offer our loyalty and our ships in exchange for protection from Council retaliation." Captain Yoon had his orders for this situation. "Fleet Commander, the Sol Defense Pact welcomes all species who commit to peaceful coexistence. You may proceed to the Kepler system for formal alliance negotiations." This was happening across human space. Species that had been oppressed by the Council were joining the human alliance. The exiled peoples of the Outer Rim, independent traders who had been forced to pay Council taxes, even some former Council colonies that wanted freedom from their home governments. Dr. Hai-Jin Lee received a priority message from Earth Command. The new alliance needed a symbol of unity, something that showed human and alien technology working together. "What about a joint exploration mission?" she suggested to Admiral Bayek. "A fleet with ships from all our allied species, using combined technology to explore unknown regions of the galaxy." Admiral Bayek approved the idea immediately. The exploration fleet would include human railgun destroyers, Centauri shield cruisers, Altaran sensor ships, and vessels from a dozen other species. It would prove that the new alliance was stronger than the old Council. President Park stood before the assembled representatives of the Sol Defense Pact. 23 species now belonged to the alliance. More were requesting membership every day. "Today we signed the Galactic Coexistence Accords," he announced. "These agreements establish the principles that will guide our alliance. Mutual respect between species, shared defense against aggression, free trade and technological cooperation, and most importantly, the right of every species to determine its own destiny." The signing ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. On hundreds of worlds, billions of beings watched as the old order was replaced by something new. The age of Council dominance was officially over. Ambassador Sora Kim, now serving as Secretary General of the Sol Defense Pact, read the final clause of the Accords. "Any species that threatens the sovereignty of alliance members will face the combined military might of all member worlds. This includes the right to use all available defensive technologies to protect alliance territory." Everyone knew what that meant. The Sol Defense Pact now had over 200 railgun-equipped warships. Any species that attacked alliance members would face the same fate as the first pacification Armada. Admiral Inho Bayek watched from his flagship as the new exploration fleet prepared to depart. Human destroyers flew alongside alien cruisers and scouts. The ships represented 15 different species, but they all carried the same message. The galaxy now belonged to those who believed in cooperation, not conquest. "Admiral, the exploration fleet is ready to depart," reported Captain Wanho. "Signal them to begin their mission," Admiral Beck replied. "Let's see what wonders we can discover when species work together instead of fighting each other." The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading toward unexplored regions beyond the galactic rim. Behind them, the Sol Defense Pact continued to grow. New species joined every month. New colonies were established. New technologies were shared between allies. High Counselor Zethmar sat in his private quarters on the former Council capital, now just another planet in a galaxy that had moved beyond his control. Through his window, he could see human patrol ships maintaining order in the system. The irony was not lost on him. 6 months ago, he had sent 200 ships to remove primitive humans from Sol system. Now those same humans were protecting his homeworld from the chaos that followed the Council's collapse. "Perhaps," he said to himself, "we should have listened to their signals 30 years ago." In her laboratory on Earth, Dr. Yoonji Park looked at her latest railgun design. It was the most advanced kinetic weapon ever built, incorporating technology from 12 different species. But more importantly, it was being built for defense, not conquest. She remembered the day.